If you want to find more mushrooms, here's a few simple tips. So the number one rule about Mushroom Club is you don't tell anyone about Mushroom Club. And I mean nobody. Because whoever you tell, they're going to sneak into your spot. And even if they don't, they're going to tell somebody else about your spot. And next thing you know, your spot is no longer your spot. So that's rule number one. Second thing is ticks. Tick season and mushroom season, they go hand in hand. So we got a few little simple tricks that we do. It looks kind of silly, but it works. So wear a lighter colored pair of pants if you can. Take some duct tape, wrap up the cuff link where your boots and your pants meet up. Take some duct tape, tape that off really good, and then also spray down with some kind of a permethrin spray, and then top it off with off. Lint rollers work really well before you get into your truck to go home. You know, the next day I'm always finding ticks crawling around in the cab of my truck. So ticks, they're no joke. They are not to be messed with because they carry all kinds of nasty diseases. So you do not want to take a chance and mess around with ticks. Soil temps. You want to look at soil temps. The temperature, the ground temp, about 4 inches deep, needs to be about 50 degrees. And it'll hit that, then it'll drop down, then it'll come up again. But you need it to consistently hit 50 degrees. So if you get on those USDA soil maps, the kind that are used by the farmers to tell when to plant, those maps will help you as well. So you want to watch those maps. Whenever they start hitting 50 degrees consistently, that's a good time to go. Another little tip is start watching a bunch of Facebook groups. So you watch those groups, whenever you start seeing people in your area starting to find mushrooms consistently, that's when it's time to go. So if they're just like the first onesie, twosie type thing out there, you know, you can go if you want, but the bulk of those mushrooms, they all come up at the same time. Mushrooms start from south and they work their way north. So all of you in those southern states, you're going to find them first, and then as the soil temperature rises, as it gets warmer, the further north that warm line creeps, that's where you're going to find them. And sometimes it's just a matter of a couple of counties. So you can find in your state, there may be people finding mushrooms in some counties that are maybe 3 or 4 counties south of you, and that's when it's time to really start thinking about it. They may not be up quite yet in your area, but it will be soon. So this is a little tip that works really well for me. As you're hunting, especially early season, you want to find a sloping hill like this hill back here that faces the south. So back behind me is north, in front of me is the south. The reason for that is as that sun comes up and it moves through, that south facing slope warms up first. So that's the area that's gonna pop those mushrooms first. Something else that I like to do is I like to hunt on the downhill side. This in here, as you can see, is pretty flat. But if you're in territory that has more, you know, topography to it, we hunt some places that are some old coal mining ground, and it's really steep in there. And if you're on the downhill side and you're looking up, you can kind of skyline them up there. And if you're on the uphill side looking down, they just kind of blend in. So looking up makes a difference if you have a choice. So if you can walk the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill, take the bottom side of that slope and look up. Another little thing I found is every once in a while, squat down. Even if you're on flat ground, squat down and take a look from kind of a different perspective. Really look over that ground. Try to find those spots that just kind of stick out better. And again, it's back to that skylining thing. So just squat down, especially if you find one. Stop where you are, take a look around, squat, because normally if you find one, there's gonna be more. You're just kind of, once your eye gets to train and you see one and your brain's like, okay, that's what I'm looking for. So if you see one, stop what you're doing. Don't take any more steps. Squat down, make a middle note of where you saw that last one, and then come back for them. I think the reason why people are so secretive and protective of their spots is how many miles go on a pair of boots. I have put hundreds of miles on my boots just looking for spots. And I've got some great spots. I got spots that's on public ground. I got spots that's on private ground. I got spots that are in these little areas that are public ground, but they're not necessarily ground that you would normally think of, you know, like maybe like a little corner of a park that is just kind of brushed up. You know, look in spots like that. Get on a mapping software, and of course make sure that it's safe and that you are, you know, okay to go in there and hunt. You may have to call and ask, and just to make sure, but chances are if it is publicly owned ground, the odds are probably on your side. But I always encourage you to ask permission rather than get yourself into trouble. If you talk to 20 people, you're going to get 20 different answers here probably. And I think probably if these people are the type that are finding mushrooms, I think they're probably all telling you facts. But for around here, maple trees. So this right here is a maple tree. And for us, if you have a south facing slope and a maple tree, a big mature maple tree, you can't have little ones. They have to be big. For whatever reason, that's what it is here. If you find a mature maple tree here, that's where you really want to slow down and start to look. Maple trees are the ones that have those little helicopters on them. So the time of year whenever you're hunting mushrooms, you won't see the helicopters yet probably. They may just be little bitty bundles of them that are starting on the tree, but they haven't started to fall yet. Around here, if the helicopters are coming down, it's really too late at that point. But when they first start to form, that around here is when you look. But it's a relatively small window. So whenever those reports start to come in, that's whenever you want out there. And it's small because the soil temp has to warm up, and it has to be warmed up to where all the underbrush isn't all green and brushed up yet. Because once that underbrush gets like a solid mat where you're looking down, it's really hard to find any mushrooms at that point. So there's a little window of opportunity where you got enough ground moisture, enough ground temperature, and the underbrush hasn't come out yet and just completely taken over. And early in the season, there's still a bunch of ticks out, but they're not as bad. A week or two later, it matters. You can find one, maybe two ticks early in the season, but then later, like the end of mushroom season, you will find ticks all over you if you're in a tick infested spot. And hopefully your area is not like that, but my area is. Once you find one, mark it on a map. There's a bunch of free mapping out there. I believe Google Maps has a feature where you can mark on it. But once you find it, mark it. And the reason for that is next year, you're gonna wanna come back to that same spot. So if you mark it on that map, and once years pass, you're gonna have marks all over the place. And a lot of times those marks are pretty far back there, especially if you're hunting on public land of any kind. So if you're hunting on like a state wildlife area, you're probably not going to find them within a couple 100 yards of the parking area, because everybody hunts that. So you want to get in there deep. I'm talking a mile and a half deep. The hardest to get to spots you can think of. Go over creeks, go over logs, go over briar patches. The furthest in, nastiest, gnarliest stuff you can find, that's where you want to go. Our area here where we find mushrooms, as I said, are around these large maple trees, but primarily for us, it's in these ditch bottoms. I'm walking down towards the bottom of the ditch now, but typically we're finding mushrooms in areas that are waterway ditches. We have areas here of big oak woods stretch, you know, hundreds of acres of just solid woods. Never had a whole lot of luck there. I'm sure there's, you know, people that do, but for me, I don't. So my recommendation is start low and then work your way up. It all depends on the year, how wet it is, soil temp, all of those things. But in a good year, typically we'll find a couple hundred mushrooms. You know, that doesn't happen overnight. I'm 50 years old, and it's been a lifetime of walking, looking, marking spots, remembering where they are, keeping it to myself or with a very close group of folks. And it'll come. Just got to put in those miles and make it happen. Once you find one, if you're hunting by yourself, stop and look at it. Once you get your brain kind of tuned in to what they look like, it's just easier. You can pick them out from that point on a lot better. If you're hunting with somebody else, call them over and say, hey, take a look at this, or if they find one first, same thing. Before they actually pick it, have them let you walk over there, look at it on the ground, and just get it burned into your brain of what it looks like. Whenever you find one, or you find a patch of them, I don't ever pick it all the way out. I don't know if this really matters or not, but I figure it doesn't really hurt anything. I always leave a handful of them back behind just for seed. So next year, in my mind anyways, those are gonna put up the spores to make the next year's mushroom patch. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said, around here, our trees are elms. Your area, maybe something different. Let me know where you find them at, what state you're in. Not necessarily where you find them, but what state you're in and where generally you find them. So around a cedar tree, an oak tree, bottom of the hill, top of the hill, etc. So anyways, we'll talk to you later. And oh yeah, if you want to tell me where you find them at, gladly. So we'll talk to y'all later. See you then. Bye.